Welcome to the Client Generation Podcast, a show where we interview some of the most successful people in real estate to help you understand how to generate leads, build a brand, and convert more clients in your business. Hey, what's up, everybody? Grant Wise here. Welcome to the Client Generation Podcast. Excited today to be joined by the one and only Dale Archdekin. He is the founder of Smart Inside Sales and has gone from practitioner to high performance consultant. And I'm excited to jump in and talk about all things sales. So Dale, thank you so much for jumping into the show, brother.
I'm honored. Love the show and honored to be a guest.
I love it, man. Well, let's dive right into it. Give everybody a little bit of your background for those that don't know you. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Started out selling real estate on my own, became one of the top expired and FSBO listers in my market, and then teamed up with a small team and said, hey, I've heard this crazy idea about inside sales departments. Let's try it out. And they said, great, let's do it. And then we proceeded to fail and waste a lot of money and took years to get it figured out and then make it profitable. And then I said, man, you know what? I think that other people would want to know how to do this too. And so I took the show on the road and started helping teams and brokerages across the country and across the border in Canada. And so that's what we do today is we focus on lead conversion, scripting dialogue for agents and ISAs, and sales management for leadership.
Man, I love it. One of the things that I've heard from people that I know that have high performance teams, have good sales structures, whether it's ISAs or VAs or agents that work in-house, is that it took a lot of time and it was a very stressful experience.
It's not easy. It's a hard thing to do.
One of the hardest things that you ever have to do. I'm a huge fan of just finding really great models. And I think Keith Cunningham is a great author of the book, The Road Less Stupid. He says, try not to pay the dumb tax and just find people that are already really successful at what it is you want to do and just copy them if they'll allow you to. And so I'm happy to hear that you took the show on the road, because there's a lot of people out there that would probably just prefer to find a good model and snap right into it.
It is difficult. It's the difficult road. And, you know, it's a passion of mine because I like winning, right? So I'm a salesperson. I like winning. And figuring out how to win through other people and help them win is like really gives me the juice now to do this. And so I like fixing broken things and I like winning, right? So a lot of sales departments tend to be broken and you get to fix them. And when you fix them, people start winning more and they get happy and they make a lot more money.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. Okay. So when we go back to the hard times, when it was really hard and you were trying to figure all this stuff out, what were the top 2 to 3 points that stick out in your mind, like the biggest ahas you had along the way that helped you maybe build a better system or get more streamlined and efficient, accountability, data? Like, what were some of the main points that really helped you understand how to get more operationalized in the way that you are growing sales teams?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple of things. One is that you reap the rewards that you invest in, right? Mm-hmm. Now, whether you're investing dollars or you're investing time or you're investing focus, right? Whatever it is, you will get, generally speaking, you're only going to get as much reward in relation to the amount that you've invested. So we made mistakes by trying to hire people too cheap to do what is a very difficult job, which is inside sales. Yeah. We tried to ineffectively have people who could produce a lot of sales with not much training invested in them or time invested in them. So that's one key element that I discovered, is that you have to make those investments in time and money and people in order to get the rewards that you're looking for. And then the other thing, a key thing that I learned was that sales is not for everybody. It just isn't. Listen, I mean, we're an inclusive industry where, generally speaking, you know, if you're especially KW, EXP, these other like help the other people up types of brokerages, we're very inclusive and we're like, hey, everybody, we're going to help all of you succeed in real estate and anybody can do it. And we're going to teach and we're going to share, right? The truth is some people just can't do it and that's okay, right? It doesn't make them bad people, but the faster you can figure out, is this bird going to fly out of the nest? The faster you can either get them to achieving their goals or help them discover that this isn't the path that's going to achieve their goals. Yeah. And that was really key for me as well.
One of the things I've really dug into when we talk about building great follow-up systems and good sales teams is the personality traits that make up a great salesperson, whether it's just disc profiles or enneagrams, or, some people, I think, like you're saying, they're literally just not wired to be great at sales follow-up and helping people implement those things. What have you guys uncovered when it comes to just somebody's personality? What could somebody go take a test today and really learn about themselves that say, hey, maybe I'm not the best at sales follow-up, and maybe I should align myself with people that are, or vice versa? What did you guys uncover there?
Unfortunately, there's no magic pill as far as I've seen. We do initially rely on the disc profile,
Yes.
or, if you're with KW, the whatever they call it now, which is a little more complicated than the disc. I found a new website recently called 16 Personalities, which is fun to look at and understand too. And we now use that in our recruiting processes. But honestly, man, it's like, listen, I have to give you the sticks and I have to show you how to rub them together, and it's either going to catch fire or it's not. And I have to more quickly discover, are you going to catch fire or not? Because honestly, like I've seen one of my personal friends, huge operator, team owner, like very successful guy, high C, like analytical personality. Like you would just never assume that this guy would be able to run a really great organization like that and be a great salesperson himself. And then I've seen people with the perfect profile who do everything you say, and they show up and they grind, they learn, and they try so hard, and they just can't make a sale. And it's like, I don't know, like I have not found any magic way of determining sales success or potential for success without making them do the work and see if the results show up.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a great philosophy. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying go take a test and you'll figure out if you're good or not, to use it as an excuse as to why you shouldn't follow up with people. So please don't mishear what it is that the question that I just asked for those listening to the podcast today.
Yeah,
I'm not giving.
I wish there was a shortcut. I wish there was more of an indicator that I could use, because that would make my life and my clients' lives so much easier.
Without question.
I think that it really just comes down to put them in the environment, like throw them in the water and teach them how to swim, throw them in the water. Do they swim or do they not? Like that's kind of the ultimate test.
Consistency in sales is without question, in my mind, one of the most important components to becoming a great salesperson, especially when you're building systems, because it's not like it's super attractive work. At least when I've done it, it's kind of like gritty and grimy. In building any system, it's very tedious, takes a lot of time, patience, consistency, and hard work, discipline, all of those types of things. What have you guys noticed, amongst the traits of the people that go off and do really well and those that maybe do not? Where do they line up? What's different about the ones that do well and the ones that don't, when it comes to just how they're kind of made?
And when you said, now, does this in them in their own individual selling success or in building teams?
Building teams. Building systems so that they can build teams.
Yeah. So obviously some people are more naturally wired to building systems, right? And some people are not, right? So our really high eyes out there, they struggle with putting these things together if they don't have any S, and I'm talking disc profile, right? So it depends on the person. So obviously the people who are more inclined to building systems in the first place, it's just going to be easier for them to do that. Right. What's harder is your natural salespeople who can sell easily because they're super people oriented. They tend to struggle a little bit more getting these systems in place. And so what they have to do is they have to intentionally take a piece of mind share and invest it into building that system. It's like, for anyone, I have strengths and weaknesses just like anyone else does. So if I'm trying to develop something in my weakness area, I have to try harder to pay attention to it. Like I can do anything amazingly the first time and never do it again. So for me, consistency is the hard part, right? That I have to actually focus on and plan, and it's difficult. So I would say that in terms of success, if your strength is building systems, it's going to be easy for you. If it's not your strength, you're just going to have to do it like brushing your teeth, man.
Over and over and again, as long as it takes.
Over and
again. Breaking the process down, how do you start? Like, how do you get this process started, building a good sales system, follow-up system? Or I would assume you got to build the system first, then you can build the team later. But walk me through what's step one. How does somebody get in here and start getting their feet wet with this?
So that's funny because I usually see them do it the other way around. They usually build the team first, and they're like, "Oh my God, I have this junk drawer of leads over here that I got to deal with." And past clients, right? They're like, "How do I sort this out?" So if you can go the route of building it first, that would be a fantastic idea. If you can have it ready for them. And again, those people who are more systems oriented be like, "Of course, you would build a system first." The other people who are like sales oriented are like, "No, that sounds terrible. Let me make the sales first. It'll all work itself out."
Yeah.
So getting started, what I would say is first look at the people who you know the best and who know, like, and trust you already, and put some kind of simple process in place. Build it for 12 months, right? Just decide how many times am I going to touch on these people in 12 months? And that gives you a framework. And it doesn't have to be, that's an easy one, which actually might be a little hard. I look at it as not having as much sales messaging. It's just, I'm your friend. How do you friend these people at least 12 times in a year, right? Once a month or 24 times in a year? How am I going to friend you? What's the program to get that done? And so once you can get that set with people who you know, like, and trust, and try to keep most of your sales messaging out of it, from my perspective, then you can move on to the people who don't know, like, or trust you, right? And you can add in some more sales messaging. And it can either be a series of talk to me. Hey, you haven't talked to me. Will you talk to me? Or you have talked to me. How do I friend you over the next 12 months, right? And if you look at it that way, then you say, okay, well, what's the messaging, or what's the subject line going to be, or what's the body copy going to say? Or what am I going to say to them when I talk to them or ask them? Then you start putting the content, you hang the content on it. So I think for me, that would be the easiest way to go about it. So we go from cadence to messaging to systems. What system am I going to use to support that, right? It can be something as simple as Excel, or you use something like you and I both connect on Follow Up Boss, right? I think it's one of the best CRMs out there for staying in touch with people. And so you just simply go into Follow Up Boss and you set those things in there. I would say pick one and just get one done, right? Get a 12-month plan done for your knowns. And then work on the unknowns.
I love it. I asked that question that way because I've built teams before I built systems. And then you build a system and you're like, oh, well, I don't even have the right people in my team that can implement the system. So I've learned paying my own dumb tax that you got to go out there, you got to do the hard work of building that system. You don't have to, but anytime I've built a system and then a team around it, it's worked out a million times better.
It's much, much easier to do that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I just keep thinking about the people listening to this, and our natural systems people are going, yes, and the people are going, nah, that sounds terrible.
Not even close. I'm an IS on the disc, so I guess I have a little bit of both in me. I'm certainly like, well, let's just go build a team and grind our way through this, and then the S in me is like, let's be smart about this. Let's build some systems first.
That's good.
I think I'd love to dive into some of your maybe principles or training here when it comes to scripting or dialogue or sales just as a skill set. I mean, how do you develop that in people?
That's a great question. So what we did, just to give you a little more context, is we built and managed and ran inside sales departments, which are very expensive. They are in real estate, residential real estate. The inside sales department typically in most models is going to be the only paid sales positions that you have at a company, right? Whereas your outside agents, they only eat what they kill and they don't cost you anything, not much, right? But with your ISAs, your inside sales agents, they cost money every month. You're paying them salaries typically in order to get them to do what they do. And so they have to be highly efficient, right? You have to have a person who can generate 5 to 6 to 7 to 10 contracts a month, depending on your marketing spend and the quality of your leads. But that's a lot of business. If you, in some markets, agents are happy to sell 5 houses a year, right? And you've got ISAs who have to produce that or more every month. So they have to have a really high skill level set. And what we did is, I think that what turns out to be the case is I'm not the world's best salesperson, but I am a really damn good trainer and I can teach people well. And so what we did is we took, what are the things that a a 10-year, 15-year, really well-experienced salesperson does. How do they look at a conversation? How do they get into a conversation with a lead or prospect? How do they essentially get on the same side of the table with that person rather than opposed to that person? Because that's really what high-level salespeople do with a lot of experience. So then we had to work it backwards, and we had to say, okay, we've got our basic scripting out there in the world, in our industry, right? That's provided by every broker. There's free scripts on the internet. There's even coaches that do free training, right, around this kind of stuff. And it's all similar in terms of approach and a more classical sales model where I'm in opposition to whoever this lead is, and I need to convince them that I'm right and they need to do what I want them to do when I want them to do it. Whereas what we did is we said, hey, really high-level salespeople, they approach every single person as, you know what, let me figure out why you're doing what you're doing, or how you're doing it, or when you want to do it, or who you want to do it with, and what you think you're going to get out of it by going that route. And I'm going to figure out how I can make that happen for you in a different way, and maybe offer you more, better, cheaper, faster, easier on top of it. So now we're getting into a lot of the principles that we talk about, where basically if I were to describe it to you, most of the basic traditional scripting and dialogue and sales technique in our industry is more oppositional, where we look at it more as partnership, right? And so every lead that we talk to, we teach people is that person is trying to achieve something in a certain way. And you have to figure out how you can serve them to your highest ability in a mutually beneficial way.
It sounds like you have to have a good degree, a high degree of emotional intelligence.
Yes. So in some cases, we just inject the emotional intelligence into it. We say, hey, listen, when somebody says this is what's going on in their brain. And then in other ways, sometimes we're teaching them how to develop their own emotional intelligence by using techniques, right? And so like we have one that we call follow the no. So if I'm talking to somebody and you say, I'm not going to buy a house until next year, rather than me asking you what area you want to buy in or how much you want to spend, I'm going to follow your no and find out what's important to you about buying next year, right? I'm going to follow the no. So part of that is emotional intelligence in saying, hey, listen to this person. They believe they know what's best for themselves. You need to understand it like they understand it before you can change anything.
Yeah. It's so powerful. What do you feel like agents that don't get that, or do you feel like they're fighting something personally? Like I see, and the reason I ask, I see a lot of agents selling based on their needs, not based on the needs of the buyer or the seller. And so when you guys are teaching and coaching people through that, and I think it's a good lesson for anybody listening to this, because sometimes we have a desire to like, no, I got to get this deal today. I got to get this deal this month. I got to meet my goals. I got to like all these types of things. And so we are not necessarily looking at what we can contribute to an interaction. We're looking at what we can take from it, right? So our mindset may be a little conflicted. How do you coach people through that? What do you really teach people to do to move past some of your own initial desires to really focus and fixate on the desire of the person you're working with?
You know, what's funny, I think that initially, and so for when we're training these people, these techniques, there are people who are like, oh my God, I get it right away, right? My intention is to serve other people. And a lot of real estate agents are like that. And that's what their intention is. They want to help people. They just don't understand how to help that other person understand that, right? They do it inefficiently. And then some of them just still want to win and still just want that own, they want what they want. But when we teach them, hey, this is a technique this is a perspective that's going to get you what you want, they're like, okay, let's do it, right? And then I think that as they do it, then they start to get more comfortable and they see how comfortable the conversation or how much more empowering and enjoyable the process of having a sales conversation with a person can be when you approach it from what's in that person's best interest.
Yeah.
And then it clicks for them.
Do you teach your people to talk a lot or to listen a lot? I mean, can you give me some perspective there?
Yeah, we actually teach them that that they are in control of the sale if the other person is talking. They are out of control if they are talking, generally speaking.
Man, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because when you get good at sales, I've invested a large sum of money in my sales education. I grew up with a father who was a salesperson. Like sales has been most of my life. And getting older, getting better at it from a skill set standpoint, you really start to see like where people are good and where people really need to improve. I had my own personal interaction the other day, and I think all things are sales. You know, I wasn't buying anything. We had a conflict come up, and you know, we sat down with somebody who didn't have a lot of sales ability. They weren't necessarily very skilled, didn't have a high degree of EQ, didn't seem to care. Unfortunately, I think they probably did care a ton. They just didn't know how to communicate their caring. And they didn't ask a lot of questions. They didn't ask how we felt. They didn't ask why we felt that way. They didn't do some of those kind of basic things, dominated the conversation for an hour. And my wife and I got through that interaction. So how do you feel about that? I said, I feel like that man said a lot and very little at the exact same time. And I think that, you know, real estate agents could learn a lot from that. And it's something that I've learned is like exactly what you just said. If you're talking a lot, you're losing. If you're listening a lot, you're winning. And that can be challenging though for newer people that are really trying to hone in those skill sets as a salesperson. What would you coach me to do to stop talking a lot? What tactically could I do to maybe quit dominating the conversation and just sit back and listen? How can I do that?
I think one of the most fun things that we do a lot of call review with our clients, right? Where they give us recordings of actual sales conversations. And when they get on a rant and they're in this conversation, they get on a rant, right? And we're listening to it together with them. And they get done with their rant. And I go, what did you learn from what you just said? Or I ask, what do you now know X, Y, or Z about that person as a result of what you just did? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay. Now you discover what sort of waste that was, right?
Right.
You're still in the same place. You still don't understand anything more about that prospect or what's going to cause them to say yes to you. And they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Good. Now, what you want to know after you said all of those things, what is it you want to know? And they're like, well, I want to know X. And I say, great. Then just go back and ask that. Just ask them that and get them to tell you. And I promise you, they will. So what can people do to stop talking so much? I think that one of the best things they can do is listen to themselves. And as they're listening, think, what am I learning about this person? Am I discovering the things that are important to this person, what their perspective is, and what would cause them to do something a different way or with a different person or in a different time frame? And if the answer is no, then you need to figure out how to get that information from them. And that would involve asking questions.
Questions, I think, are everything in the sales process.
Yeah.
When we're working through teaching our own salespeople how to, get the desired result, it's understanding what results you're after, and that doesn't necessarily look like a sale. That could just look like selling your perspective, or selling somebody on getting a free download, or selling somebody on an appointment. Right? It doesn't have to look like a transaction, but if you can understand what your desired result is, and you can ask a question that allows the person you're communicating with to sell themselves, typically there's a lot less friction in the sales process, at least that we've experienced, that creates an easier closing process, whatever it is that we're trying to sell somebody on.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to give this caveat. So for a long time, we really just worked on asking questions. And I would say that 90% of the sales issues out there can be improved or fixed or made better by simply teaching salespeople to be question oriented and to be client focused rather than self-focused.
Yeah.
Once people get those skills down, then there is a higher level of sales training, or the things that we focus on afterwards, which would be, how do you sell yourself, right? How do you sell the sizzle instead of the steak? And so there is some presentation and persuasion aspects to what you should do in sales. But I think that the problem is most people think the core of sales is persuasion and promotion, when in fact, that's just kind of that's the icing on the cake. And the cake are the questions and the core of understanding who you're engaging with and where they're at.
Man, I could talk about this all day long. I love sales so much.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of people come to you and they're like, well, I just really don't like sales. And I feel I'm more customer service. Do you ever get those types of mindsets walking in the door?
Of course, of course. And in my experience, I feel like it certainly happens more with females, where they want to be more of service, and they don't want to feel like they're bothering people, or that they are annoying people, or that they're somehow doing something wrong or breaking the relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so when I have people, and this is just something I've developed so far in trying to shift their perspective, the way that they're looking at things. Obviously, if someone's coming to us asking for something, like they want to buy something from us, or they want to ask us questions because they are close to making a buying decision, that's very easy. And what those people are saying is, I want to work with these people who are asking for something from me, because then I can provide what I think they want. If I have someone like that who needs that kind of perspective, and again, sales is not for everyone, and maybe it truly isn't right for them, but it's all perspective. So, I mean, look at it this way, right? If a Jehovah's Witness didn't fully believe in their need to help me, do you think they would show up on my doorstep, knocking on my door, only to be met with frustration or annoyance? Or would they do any of that if they didn't fully believe that they were helping me in my life, right?
Yeah.
It's perspective. It's a matter of perspective. So if you say, hey, I don't want to reach out to those people who aren't asking for anything from me, or who aren't approaching me because I'm bothering them, then I say, okay, well, let's try this perspective on for size, right? Let's pretend that you're an emergency room nurse, okay? You work the ER. Someone comes shambling in, bleeding from certain orifices or punctures or wounds or whatever it is, and they say, hey, I need some pills really fast to fix this. Let me ask you something. One, do they want to answer your questions right now about things that aren't fixing their immediate problem? No, they don't. Do they want to fill out your forms? No, they don't. But if you don't do your job and ask the right questions and get the forms filled out properly, can you potentially kill them and make the situation worse? Yes, you can. Okay. So listen, yeah, they're going to be a little annoyed with you. Yeah, they don't want to follow your process, but ultimately you are helping them. You are saving them from a bad agent. You are saving them from losing money on their real estate transaction, or going through a really crappy transaction with somebody. You're going to save them from that, but you have to put them through a little bit of pain first. Okay. So go ask your questions. And that usually helps with those people.
No, I love it. A shift in perspective is always so needed for most things. Most things. I think the world lacks perspective right now, for sure. But that's a different topic. Last question I got for you, my man, is really just like, theoretically or principally, do you believe that people buy facts and figures and logic, or do you believe that people buy feelings?
I think that different people buy different things at different times. And there are people who are more fact figure oriented and will make decisions based on that. And then there are people, obviously and very clearly, who will make decisions based on emotions.
Yes.
Have facts or figures, right? So one, it depends on who you're talking to, what mood they're in. And if you're confused, use both.
How do you do that?
So, Grant, if you were to work with my company and I to purchase your next home, on average, we save our clients somewhere between 15 and 20% overall on their purchase. And at the end of the day, our clients really report back that they feel more like friends with us than clients. And we love that about it. I just use both.
There you go. Sounds like education, experience, developing your skill set are so needed, man. And I think that that's a lot of what people are going to go away from this podcast. But let's say somebody wants to dig a little deeper with you, Dale. What's the best way somebody could connect with you and learn more about you and how you're teaching people and consulting?
They can find everything they need to know about us at our website, smartinsidesales.com.
Love it. smartinsidesales.com. We will definitely make sure that we link that up in the show notes, guys. We'll link other ways you can connect with Dale. Reach out and get acquainted. I know that in a lot of our work, obviously, we talk about client generation a lot, but lead generation is a big component. Branding's a big component, but nothing happens unless you are good at conversion. Absolutely nothing can happen if you are not great at developing this skill set in your business. I think it's one of the most important things you can do. I know it's one of the the things that I'm probably most intentional about teaching my kids and my family and everybody else in my company is to really learn how to sell. We all have something we are selling, whether it's a product or service, whether it's money or faith or any of those other types of things. If you can get good at understanding sales and you can develop that as a skill set, my brother always said, sales is the only thing in the world outside of, entrepreneurship or building a business where people can get paid in direct contribution to or direct correlation to the value that they can provide to somebody. And I think that, there's no limits in this industry or any others if you have really, really good sales skills. So Dale, man, thank you so much for stopping by the show. This has been a great episode. And I encourage anybody listening to go check out smartinsidesales.com, connect with Dale. Appreciate you again, man, for stopping by.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for continuing to listen to the Client Generation Podcast. We will see you on the next episode. Peace. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Client Generation Podcast. Please make sure that you rate and review this episode so that we can continue to bring you more incredible guests to help you grow your business. Thanks, and have an amazing day.